The Portugal Cove encounter, when a fisherman battled a sea monster. The age of sea monsters. In the autumn of 1873, the world still believed in sea monsters. Sailors spoke in hushed tones of the kraken, a creature so vast it could wrap its tentacles around entire ships and drag them into the abyss. Ancient maps warned of dragons lurking in uncharted waters. Ship captains swore they had seen serpents longer than their vessels coiling through the waves, and fishermen told tales of massive creatures rising from the deep that defied all explanation. Most educated people dismissed these stories as superstition, the product of isolation, fear, and too much rum. But what those skeptics didn't know was that something truly monstrous did live in the ocean's depths, something that would soon reveal itself in the cold waters off Newfoundland, Canada. This is the true story of Theophilus Picot, a fisherman who came face to face with a creature from nightmare, fought for his life, and brought back proof that the ocean's monsters were real. His encounter on October 26, 1873, would change marine science forever and confirm that the legends sailors had been telling for centuries had a terrifying basis in fact. The creature he encountered was Architeuthis dux, the giant squid. The morning of October 26, 1873. Theophilus Picot was not a man given to flights of fancy. A seasoned fisherman from the small community of Portugal Cove, Newfoundland, he had spent most of his life on the frigid waters of the North Atlantic. He knew the sea's moods, respected its dangers, and understood that survival depended on clear thinking and quick reactions. On that October morning, the weather was cold but manageable. Picot, along with two other fishermen, his young son Tom and a companion named Daniel Squires, rowed their small dory out from shore into Conception Bay. The dory was a humble craft, perhaps 15 feet long, designed for inshore fishing. It was sturdy enough for coastal waters but hardly the vessel you'd want for confronting a sea monster. They were looking for fish, nothing more. The autumn fishing season was winding down, and they needed to make every trip count. They brought their nets, their lines, and their boat hooks, standard equipment for any fishing expedition. The bay was calm, the water dark and deep. Seabirds wheeled overhead, and in the distance, they could see the rocky coastline of Newfoundland, already touched with the first snows of approaching winter. Everything seemed perfectly ordinary. They had no reason to expect that within the next hour, they would be fighting for their lives against one of the ocean's most fearsome predators. The thing in the water. They were perhaps a few hundred yards from shore when young Tom Picot spotted something strange floating on the surface. At first, it looked like a mass of seaweed or perhaps the carcass of a dead whale. It was large, very large, and seemed to be just drifting on the gentle swells. In those days, finding strange things floating in the ocean was not uncommon. Dead animals, debris from shipwrecks, tangles of kelp, the sea was full of flotsam. Curious, the fishermen rowed closer to investigate. As they approached, they could see that the object was reddish-brown in color and had an odd, fleshy appearance. It didn't look like seaweed after all. Theophilus Picot, thinking it might be some sort of valuable salvage, perhaps a piece of ship's equipment or cargo, decided to prod it with his boat hook to get a better look. This decision would prove to be spectacularly unwise. The moment the iron hook touched the mass, it erupted into violent motion. What they had mistaken for a piece of floating debris was, in fact, a living creature, and a furious one. The mass suddenly elongated, revealing itself to be an animal of nightmarish proportions. Two enormous eyes, each the size of a dinner plate, stared at them with alien intelligence. The creature's body was perhaps 20 feet long, torpedo-shaped, with skin that rippled with color. And then the arms came. 8 thick, muscular arms began thrashing at the surface, each one lined with hundreds of sucker discs rimmed with sharp, tooth-like hooks. But more terrifying were the 2 longer appendages that shot out from the mass, feeding tentacles, each perhaps 30 feet in length, tipped with broad clubs covered in more of those savage suckers. The fisherman had woken up a giant squid. And it was not happy. The attack. What happened next was a scene of pure chaos and terror. The giant squid, having been rudely awakened by Picot's boat hook, immediately perceived the small dory as a threat, or perhaps as prey. With shocking speed, one of its long feeding tentacles shot out and wrapped around the side of the boat. The grip was powerful beyond anything the fisherman had experienced. The suckers clamped onto the wooden gunnel with such force that they immediately began leaving deep marks in the wood. Each sucker was ringed with a hard, chitinous edge that could grip like a vice. The squid began pulling the boat toward it. Theophilus Picot shouted to his son and companion to grab the oars and try to row away, but it was useless. The squid was far too strong. Every time they tried to pull away, the creature simply hauled them back, its tentacle tightening around the boat's rail. Water began sloshing over the side as the squid tilted the dory. The three men realized with mounting horror that the creature was trying to capsize them. If they went into the water with this monster, they would certainly die. Young Tom was screaming. Daniel Squires was praying. And Theophilus Picot was thinking as fast as his terrified mind would allow. The squid's head, its mantle, actually, the torpedo-shaped body that contains its organs, was now alongside the boat. Picot could see the creature's massive parrot-like beak, designed to tear flesh, working hungrily. The eyes, huge and expressionless, stared up at him from just below the surface. Then a second tentacle came up and grabbed the opposite side of the boat. The dory was now firmly in the squid's grip, being pulled steadily downward. Water was pouring in over both sides. In moments, they would sink. Picot made a desperate decision. He grabbed a small hatchet they kept in the boat, used for cutting lines and dispatching fish, and began hacking at the tentacle wrapped around the gunnel. The squid's flesh was tough, rubbery, and difficult to cut. But Picot swung the hatchet again and again with all his strength, driven by pure survival instinct. Finally, the blade bit through. The severed tentacle released its grip, and the squid immediately reacted. It released the boat entirely and jetted backward through the water in a massive cloud of dark ink that turned the sea around them black. For a moment, the three fishermen thought they were safe. But then they realized something. Part of the squid's tentacle, a piece at least 19 feet long, was still wrapped around their boat, the suckers still gripping the wood even though it was no longer attached to the creature. Escape and evidence. The squid, badly wounded and trailing ink, disappeared into the depths. Whether it lived or died from the injury, they would never know. What they did know was that they needed to get back to shore immediately. Their boat was damaged, taking on water, and they were shaking with adrenaline and fear. They rowed frantically, expecting at any moment for the creature to resurface and finish what it had started. But the attack didn't come. They made it back to Portugal Cove, half-drowned and traumatized, with the most extraordinary evidence imaginable, a 19-foot-long tentacle from a genuine sea monster. Word of the encounter spread through the tiny fishing community like wildfire. People came from neighboring settlements to see the tentacle. Some touched it with awe, others with revulsion. The suckers were still clinging to pieces of wood and cloth with a death grip. But what to do with this incredible specimen? The fishermen knew it was important, but they were simple men who made their living from the sea. They had no scientific training and no way to preserve such a massive biological specimen. Fortunately, Portugal Cove was not far from St. John's, Newfoundland's capital, and word of the encounter reached a man who would ensure that this discovery didn't go to waste, Reverend Moses Harvey. Reverend Moses Harvey and scientific recognition. Moses Harvey was an unusual figure in 1870s Newfoundland. A Presbyterian minister and an amateur naturalist, he was deeply interested in the natural world and maintained correspondence with scientists throughout North America and Europe. When he heard about the giant tentacle in Portugal Cove, he immediately understood its significance. Harvey rushed to the community and examined the appendage. What he saw astonished him. The tentacle was clearly from an enormous cephalopod, a squid or octopus, but one far larger than any scientifically documented specimen. The suckers were rimmed with sharp, horny teeth. The flesh was thick and muscular. This was no ordinary creature. Harvey convinced the fishermen to give him the tentacle, promising them compensation. He then carefully measured and documented it before preserving it in brine. His measurements showed the severed portion was 19 feet long and approximately 3.5 inches in diameter at its thickest point. But Harvey wanted more than just the tentacle. He wanted a complete specimen. Remarkably, his wish was granted less than 2 weeks later. On November 2, 1873, just 1 week after Picot's encounter, another group of fishermen caught a complete giant squid in their herring nets near St. John's. The creature was dead but intact, measuring approximately 32 feet in total length. When Harvey heard the news, he purchased the entire animal and had it brought to his home. The Reverend's neighbors were shocked to find a massive sea monster draped over his bathtub. Harvey photographed it meticulously, one of the first ever photographs of a giant squid, before shipping various parts to scientists, including Professor Addison Emery Vell at Yale University, one of the world's leading experts on cephalopods. Vell's examination confirmed what Harvey suspected. These were specimens of Architeuthis, the giant squid, a creature whose existence had been debated by scientists for years. Some researchers believed the giant squid was real, based on fragmentary evidence like beaks found in sperm whale stomachs and occasional sightings. Others dismissed it as myth. Now there was irrefutable proof. The 1870s, a decade of discovery. The Portugal Cove encounter wasn't an isolated incident. Between 1871 and 1881, Newfoundland experienced what can only be described as a giant squid boom. More than 50 specimens were found, caught, or washed ashore during this remarkable decade. No one knows exactly why so many giant squid appeared in Newfoundland waters during this period. Some scientists theorized that changes in ocean currents or water temperature drove the normally deep-dwelling creatures into shallower coastal waters. Others suggested population cycles. Still others believed that the squid had always been there, but increased fishing activity and awareness simply meant more encounters were being reported and documented. Whatever the cause, the result was a scientific revolution. For the first time, researchers had access to multiple complete specimens of one of the ocean's most mysterious creatures. They could study its anatomy, measure its size, examine its feeding apparatus, and begin to understand its biology. The discoveries were astounding. Giant squid, researchers learned, were the largest invertebrates on Earth. They possessed eyes the size of dinner plates, the largest eyes in the animal kingdom. Their 8 arms and 2 feeding tentacles were lined with hundreds of suckers, each rimmed with sharp, tooth-like structures. At the center of the arms was a beak made of chitin, sharp enough and strong enough to bite through steel cable. Most incredibly, these creatures lived at depths of 1,000 to 3,000 feet, hunting in the pitch-black depths of the ocean where no human could follow. They were ambush predators, using their feeding tentacles to snatch prey from a distance before bringing it to their beaks. The specimens also revealed something else. Giant squid were not invincible. Many of the carcasses showed extensive scarring, likely from battles with their primary predator, sperm whales. In the lightless depths, these two titans engaged in struggles that would dwarf any surface drama, locked in an evolutionary arms race that had been playing out for millions of years. The science and the myth. As scientists studied the specimens, they began to separate fact from fiction. Yes, giant squid were real and enormous. But were they the ship-sinking krakens of legend? Probably not. While a giant squid could theoretically attack a small boat, as Picot had experienced, most encounters suggested these were essentially defensive actions. The squid wasn't trying to eat the fisherman. It was trying to escape what it perceived as a threat. However, scientists also acknowledged that for centuries, sailors' reports of sea serpents and monsters might have been legitimate sightings of giant squid. A squid's feeding tentacles, held above the surface, could look like a serpent's neck. The creature's pointed tail fins could resemble a head. And when a giant squid moved at the surface, propelling itself with jets of water, it could create a wake that looked like the coils of a serpent. The famous 1848 sighting by the crew of the HMS Daedalus, which reported a 60-foot sea serpent near the Cape of Good Hope, could well have been a giant squid. The description, a creature with a horse-like head moving through the water at high speed, matches the appearance of a giant squid swimming at the surface. Even Jules Verne's famous novel 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, published in 1870, featured a terrifying giant squid attack based on the 1861 encounter between the French warship Alecton and a dying giant squid off the Canary Islands. Verne understood that the public's fascination with these creatures was not mere superstition. It was based on legitimate encounters with real animals. But the science also revealed limitations. Giant squid, despite their size, were relatively fragile creatures. Their bodies were composed mostly of water and ammonia, which provided buoyancy at depth, giving them a gelatinous texture. They couldn't survive for long at the surface due to the pressure difference and warm water. This explained why so many specimens washed ashore dead or dying. The creatures were also probably quite rare. The sudden abundance of specimens in 1870s Newfoundland was an anomaly. After 1881, encounters became much less frequent, and giant squid returned to being creatures of mystery, seen only occasionally. The long wait for living specimens. For more than a century after the Portugal Cove encounter, scientists dreamed of seeing a living giant squid in its natural habitat. They had carcasses to study, specimens to dissect, but no one had ever observed how these creatures actually lived, hunted, and moved in the deep ocean. Numerous expeditions were launched. In the 1990s, the Smithsonian Institution's Clyde Roper teamed up with National Geographic to try attaching cameras to sperm whales, hoping to capture footage of the whales hunting giant squid. The effort failed to produce the desired footage. In 1997, researchers from New Zealand tried to film giant squid in the Kaikoura Canyon, a deep underwater trench known to be frequented by sperm whales. Despite months of effort and considerable expense, they saw nothing. The giant squid remained frustratingly elusive. Finally, in 2004, Japanese marine biologist Tsunemi Kubodera and his team achieved what was thought impossible. Using a baited line equipped with a camera, they captured over 500 photographs of a live giant squid at a depth of nearly 3,000 feet in the Pacific Ocean. The squid attacked the bait aggressively, wrapping its feeding tentacles around the lure. In the process, one of its tentacles was severed. The squid had attacked so violently it tore off its own arm trying to escape, but the photographs provided the first glimpse of these creatures alive in their natural environment. In 2006, Kubodera's team went one better. They captured a giant squid and brought it to the surface alive, filming it before it died. The footage showed a creature quite different from the pale, flaccid carcasses that washed ashore. In life, the giant squid was a powerful, muscular predator that glowed with bronze and silver hues. The ultimate achievement came in 2012, when Kubodera, along with teams from NHK, Japan Broadcasting Corporation, and Discovery Channel, filmed a giant squid in its natural habitat at depth. Using a submersible, they descended to 2,000 feet in the Pacific Ocean and spent 23 minutes filming an approximately 10-foot-long juvenile squid as it investigated their bait. The footage stunned the world. Here, finally, was Architeuthis as it truly lived, a graceful, powerful creature moving through its lightless realm, its eyes glowing in the submersible's lights, its tentacles moving with almost balletic precision. The documentary, which premiered in January 2013, vindicated what Theophilus Picot had witnessed 140 years earlier. The giant squid was a formidable, aggressive predator capable of rapid movements and powerful attacks. Picot's legacy. Today, we know far more about giant squid than Theophilus Picot could have imagined. We know they grow up to 43 feet long. We know they have the largest eyes in the animal kingdom, up to 11 inches in diameter, evolved to detect the faint bioluminescence of prey in the pitch-black depths. We know their primary food is fish and smaller squid, and that they hunt using their two feeding tentacles, which can extend rapidly to grab prey from a distance of up to 30 feet. We also know they live all over the world's oceans, at depths typically between 1,000 and 3,000 feet, in a zone scientists call the twilight zone or mesopelagic zone. They likely live solitary lives, coming together only to mate. After mating, the female lays thousands of eggs in a gelatinous mass, and then both parents likely die. The young hatch as tiny paralarvae and must survive the perilous journey to the deep ocean. We know that giant squid themselves are prey to sperm whales, which dive to incredible depths to hunt them. Examination of sperm whale stomachs has revealed that giant squid may make up a significant portion of their diet. The scars found on sperm whales, circular marks from squid suckers, testify to the violent battles that occur in the depths. Despite all this knowledge, giant squid remain mysterious. Scientists still don't know their exact population numbers, their range, their lifespan, or many details of their behavior. They've never been successfully kept in captivity. Every specimen that has been brought to the surface alive has died within hours. But Theophilus Picot's encounter on that October day in 1873 was the beginning of real understanding. His quick thinking and his hatchet provided science with the first substantial evidence that the giant squid was not a myth but a real, living creature. The 19-foot tentacle he brought back to shore is preserved to this day in scientific collections, a testament to one man's terrifying encounter with a creature that had haunted human imagination since the first sailor ventured into the deep ocean. Modern encounters. Giant squid encounters continue to this day, though they remain rare. In 2015, a live giant squid entered Toyama Bay in Japan and was filmed by divers swimming alongside it. The footage showed the squid moving gracefully through the water, seemingly unbothered by the human observers. It was eventually guided back to open ocean. In 2017, a badly injured giant squid washed ashore in South Africa, where it was filmed wrapping its arms around a paddleboard before dying on the beach. In 2020, Japanese researchers filmed a giant squid using its feeding tentacles to catch prey, the first footage showing this behavior in the wild. And fishermen around the world continue to occasionally find giant squid in their nets or see them at the surface, usually dead or dying, sometimes alive and aggressive. Each encounter adds to our understanding, but also reinforces how much we still don't know. The deep ocean, where giant squid make their home, remains one of the least explored environments on Earth. We have better maps of the surface of Mars than we do of the ocean floor. What other creatures might live down there, in the crushing darkness beyond the reach of sunlight? The colossal squid, Mesonychoteuthis hamiltoni, a close relative of the giant squid that grows even larger and has hooks instead of suckers, was only scientifically described in 1925 and has rarely been seen. The first footage of a colossal squid in its natural habitat wasn't captured until 2025. What else is waiting to be discovered? Epilogue. The Ocean's Mysteries. Theophilus Picot died long before scientists confirmed everything he had witnessed. But his story lived on, passed down through generations of Newfoundland fishermen, commemorated in scientific papers, and illustrated in books about sea monsters that turned out to be real. His encounter reminds us that the border between myth and reality is sometimes thinner than we think. The sailors who swore they had seen krakens and sea serpents weren't all lying or drunk or delusional. Some of them had genuinely encountered creatures that defied their understanding of the natural world. The ocean keeps its secrets well. Even today, with submarines, ROVs, and sophisticated sonar, we have explored less than 5% of the world's oceans. The remaining 95% remains almost entirely unknown, a vast, dark frontier where strange creatures live lives we can barely imagine. Giant squid are no longer considered mythical, but they remain mysterious. We've gone from denying their existence to photographing them in the abyss, but we still can't answer basic questions about their lives. And every year, fishermen somewhere in the world have an encounter that echoes Theophilus Picot's experience. A moment of terror and awe when something enormous and alien rises from the depths, reminds us how little we know about the ocean, and then vanishes back into the dark. The next time you look out at the sea, remember, beneath those waves, in waters so deep that no light penetrates, creatures the size of school buses hunt in total darkness, their dinner plate eyes searching for the faint glow of prey. They are real. They always were. And Theophilus Picot's hatchet, striking desperately at a tentacle as thick as a man's leg, proved it. If you liked the fisherman's story, hit the like button, subscribe for more, and share this story with your friends.